Hey there, thanks for joining us at the Rabbit Hole of Research, where you'll learn a few facts that you can impress your friends with at a party. Hey, welcome back to the Rabbit Hole of Research. We're down here in the basement studio. You have me, Joe.
You got Nick.
We've got Nick. We've got Georgia.
Hello.
And we have a special guest joining us for this episode.
So I'm Christopher Hawkins. I'm the author of Downpour, which is a novel about a very strange rain that begins to fall and eat away at people's homes and change everyone around them into monsters. And I also have a new book coming out called I Contain Multitudes.
Awesome. Yeah, sounds great. And we are going to, this episode, talk about dangerous rains and what's in the rain and if it can be harmful. So,
can it be purple as well?
No, I think that's copyright.
only if you're singing. That's the...
Yeah, I think that's been done. I've got a little, like a strange inkling in the back of my head.
I don't know. I feel
Yeah.
like colored rain would be good, and the color purple for the rain. Perfect.
Yeah, I love it. It has a nice ring to it.
Yeah,
it does. It does. Very musical.
We could do chartreuse rain or something. Yeah.
Magenta.
Magenta, that's nice.
Yeah.
Cool. So I usually start off with a definition or a list. Maybe I'll do both. I got a short definition and just to set us on the right track. So how do I define dangerous rain? I would say that dangerous rains are any form of precipitation that poses a direct or indirect threat to human life, infrastructure, or the environment. These rains can be natural, human-caused, or fictional, and their dangers can arise from chemical composition, biological contamination, extreme physical properties, or supernatural effects. Ooh. And I have two kind of categories in my list to kind of guide us. You guys can disagree with the list if you like.
Like always.
So unfortunately, one of these times I'm going to have a perfect list. But I separate to real, and then I have fictional or mythological rain categories. And the real ones are like acid rain, radioactive rain, toxic chemical rain, industrial spill of volcanic gases, disease rain, microplastic rain, heavy metal rain, or a glass lava rain.
Oh.
Yeah, that one was interesting. Kind of exoplanet
Is the
conditions.
microplastic one like a new rain?
It is
That's
actually.
'cause we have all those
That's because of all
micro-
the plastics.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just report and study just came out, I believe, that there's more microplastics in people than they thought. So
We are
we're
plastic.
becoming plastic.
Some people are more plastic than others, but
Yeah, so we'll have a Stretch Armstrong episode later. So
I can't
that's
wait.
all that plastic.
Yeah, but the plastic isn't necessarily stretchy.
That is true. It could be rigid plastic.
Could be.
Yeah, then I had fictional kind of rains. I have blood rain and biblical plagues and things like that. Burning sulfur rain, fire and brimstone, flesh-eating rain, very corrosive rain that could dissolve metal and things. Chris was talking about in his novel, Downpour. Mind-altering rain, rain that can cause insanity, mutations, alien extraterrestrial rain, or parasitic rain. So
Can we
that's kinda-
have cats and dogs?
that would be
I'm sorry.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, not,
meatballs.
maybe not animal rains like frogs or things like
Right.
that. And we talked about that in an episode, the climate disaster episode. We had the Sharknado and kind of water spouts will pick up animals from one place and rain them down someplace else. So that's
And that would actually be in the real category.
that
Right.
would be in the real category. Yes.
And
Yes.
it could be in the,
Yes.
and when you're talking about sharks, it's probably in the not real category.
Believe that it can possibly happen. Yes, it's in the realm of possibilities. Not 100% hand waving them. So that's it.
as long as it's not 100%, I'm good with that.
Yeah.
As
Yeah.
long as there's
Cool.
a small chance, right?
There is a small, that's right, yes. We're not 100%
Very
hand
small.
waving.
Just there's a small chance you might get sucked up by quicksand.
I
Not a
thought,
full.
I thought growing up that quicksand was going to be a much more dangerous thing in my
Or
daily
like
life.
a
I thought I
more
was going to run into
like,
it
it was
every
just
day of
like-
my life.
But the same thing with acid rain. When I was in school back in the 80s, we talked about acid rain all the time. I'm not sure. Nick, you're a little bit younger. And so I don't know, it was still a huge thing where it was like acid rain was this big issue that we were going to be dealing with. And it was mostly caused by industrial pollution. And the cause of it is sulfur dioxide from industrial nitrogen oxides reacting with water. And so you form sulfuric acid. Except
Yeah,
it's,
and the way they talked about it on the news made it sound like this great, like apocalyptic thing. That, oh no, the acid rain is coming. Is anything safe?
yeah.
So is that kind of what inspired you to write your novel? Or like what?
I don't know. It's not consciously. Now that I'm thinking about it, that might have been like somewhere in the depths of the brain somewhere, and it just was one of the things that I pulled out. But no, it was really based on this idea of the vulnerabilities that you have, like when you own a home and when you have a family and all of these things that you're trying to protect. And rain is one of those things that can be very benign and often is very benign. If we didn't have it, we wouldn't have life, we wouldn't have crops, we wouldn't have fresh water. But it's also potentially very destructive, right? So anytime we see a hurricane, it's very, very evident how powerful those natural forces can become. So I think I probably had all of those ideas working together and then came up with this idea. What if the rain was actively trying to destroy? And then how do you get out of that? Because if it's raining, you can find shelter, but if the rain eats away your shelter, how do you survive that?
Right.
So yeah, I think it was just a mishmash of all these sort of disparate ideas that just came together.
So if there's no shelter that can withstand it, is the only place to go down?
Yeah, I don't want to give too much away, but
Wait, did I nail it?
Of the story.
That would be the place you go, yeah.
That's a smart
I mean,
idea. Yeah.
I just right away go golfer and just start going underground.
And take it
well,
over there.
we're
Right,
used to
right,
those rabbit holes, right?
Yeah, there is an underground storm shelter that features in the story. I don't want to give too much away,
Right.
but as the story unfolds, it's
Right.
so far away that it feels like it's impossible to get to. Part of the story involves how then do they find their way to this thing that is going to save them, and the results are not great.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I think that brings up a good point about anything when you talk about weather or natural disasters. It's just that feeling of it's completely out of your control. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's the terrifying thing about it.
And why it comes up, but it does to touch on the thing about survival of something like that. So devastating. There's the immediate survival of the catastrophe of this rain and trying to get to some shelter or hide. But the other thing is just the world almost ending event that it would be in terms of acidifying oceans. And then
So you're
all
talking
terrestrial life would probably be trees, plants, things that we need, that we rely on to live.
Doesn't it also infect the water, like the drinking water,
That's what
the
I mean,
fresh
yeah,
water?
right,
And then,
yeah, right. You acidify all of, so that would be dangerous to drink, or things that live in the water would die. So you would have this far-reaching beyond the struggle of. It's always that thing when you watch apocalyptic or read apocalyptic stories.
That water
It's kind of
is-
like, or why are you trying to survive, or are you not thinking
at
about
that point.
the long-term consequences?
But
you know?
the point is, too, it could be very isolated, and it could be
That's right, yep.
obviously in world ending to you if you're
Right,
dealing
right.
with that, but it could be very isolated as opposed to
Yep.
a much
Yep,
more
yep.
global.
Yeah, I think that also is the point. But if it's more global, like a roving storm, the last bookstore on Earth, it was a rain event, and the book it's less than 20 years old, so
No
I can't,
spoilers.
no spoilers. But yeah, it was like that, where you had these rains that would eat through structures or melt people if they stayed in the rain too long. So probably very high pH rain that would be destructive. And it was a rolling storm that seemed to be rolling across the land and this destroying everything in kind of some cycle. So it's
Devastating.
Kind of like
yeah.
a natural bulldozer just going
exactly,
across
but yeah. So it just comes when you have that sort of world and you're going to do that, then everything else has to respond in kind.
Right.
And then you have to think about if it's more isolated and personal, then it could be the state. This was a localized storm,
Well,
something happened, and then
And
you
also
go right.
think
right.
about Flint, Michigan, as far as real life goes. So the idea of
You mean they're drinking water?
they're
They didn't
drinking.
have
No,
acid.
they didn't.
Yes.
I know it wasn't a rain event, but I'm just saying not having clean or drinkable
Water, right?
it-
Yes.
I
No.
know there's a
Potable
word.
water. Potable.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I was like,
potable water. Yeah.
what that means.
Yeah, yes,
And you can't even take a bath, right? Or shower
Yep.
with
No,
this water.
I always say that's the getting a little off topic, but if there was a robot apocalypse, war against man versus machine,
Just wait till it rains.
yeah, or just the machines can just contaminate our water supplies.
That's a
and
good
we
point.
would be
They'll get
done.
all- they'll-
You just have to wait till it rains.
It'll be like the scare
Why is
in,
that?
like in Wizard
Because
of
they'll be
Oz,
all
where
rusty.
you can't, like,
No, the materials
gonna
now.
short
No, they're gonna
circuit.
be like carbon fiber. No,
I dropped my phone in the water and it dies.
Well, your phone's not smart.
smartphone.
Then it wasn't. If it was smart, it wouldn't have dropped into the water.
But I feel like just holding off the AI just with the hose. Just me outside in my short
You're
shorts and the
done.
garden hose.
Just that
Get
image
off my
alone.
yard.
Just that image.
Yeah, yeah. It's how
So
I
when
always.
the Terminator endoskeleton like comes over the hill, you're just going to be there with the sprayer.
Exactly. Me with my super soaker.
You're done. You're gonna be gone first. That's
I think that might be a better concept than the last Terminator sequel. So yeah, I'm going to go with it.
You know, we got to write this movie. We'll submit it to them.
yeah.
This is the next Terminator film?
And there could be the merch. Get your short shorts. The really sad thing is, I think I read that they are now saying that around the globe, no rainwater is safe to drink now. Have you found that?
I did not see that. No.
Because it just has so many different things, like the things you were talking about.
Microplastics.
What
Or-
also is it PFAs? Do you know what that is?
Isn't that a type of plastic?
You know what? I need you to tell me.
Aren't you the scientist here? You're supposed to be.
You guys just throw things at me like.
It's this
What about
longer word
PFA? Yes,
that I
it is
didn't
like
come.
polyfluor. I'm guessing at it, but yeah.
But they said the levels of this is so high now that they do not recommend drinking any rainwater. Period.
Yeah.
I know my
That's
parents
a
always used.
distressing thought.
Yeah, I know my parents used to be like, "Stop trying to drink the rainwater; it's dirty." And I was always like, "Oh wait, how is it dirty? Because it's supposed to be nature. It's supposed to be
Right.
like, oh yeah, I can stick my tongue out and drink a raindrop or two."
Yeah, it's a fluoropolymer.
Is that what the
plastic. It's,
PFA?
yes, perfluoroalkoxy. That's the PFA.
See, that's why I didn't remember the word.
It's known for its chemical resistance, flexibility, and electrical properties.
And it's flexible.
It is so. There you go. Stretch Armstrong. Here we go. Yeah. So we think about these rains, especially the very acidic rains, and more in the hand wavium category. We're not going to get there. Even if you have the acid rains that we grew up petrified about, they would have been very survivable, and you could take mitigations to help structures and things like that, but it wouldn't be a world-ending kind of catastrophic event. But there are places that you do have extreme rains, like Venus. If we happen to go to Venus, they actually have sulfuric acid rain.
Well,
That's there. That's created by volcanic
oh gosh,
sulfur
I gotta call and
dioxide.
cancel my.
cancer. And so yeah,
The
it's a very
tourism board is always up.
it's very bad. One of the interesting things is that they speculate that life could still live on the planet, but in the cloud layer. So microbial life could be hanging out in the clouds above that.
That's the other thing. I also read that the rain can be a big carrier of cholera.
That's right. There was
And,
cholera
like,
incidences. Yeah.
Different bacteria can come. You can get infected from the rain.
Really?
Yeah. You can have rain splash, like crops. So listeria, things like that, other bacteria in the rain could actually have splash effects. So they just, as the rain hits one, it splashes, and then you start populating and spreading different bacteria. But generally,
If only Jeff Goldblum can explain this to me.
I don't know. What? No love here. No love on the moon Titan, Saturn's largest moon. They have methane rain, so oil. It's like oil rainstorms in their cycle. So you have methane and ethane evaporate from clouds and then fall as rain like gasoline.
Wait, so if there was a fire set there, the whole sky would be on fire? Like,
Potentially, yes. Yes.
would it ever be able to stop?
Yeah, the problem is that the temperature of Titan is about negative 290 degrees Fahrenheit, or if you're a Celsius person, minus 179.
So you're
So,
saying that
right,
a
so you
fire
need-
couldn't even get started?
Exactly. You need the three elements for fire. You need oxygen, fuel, and heat. It's devoid of heat and potentially oxygen. I don't know if there's oxygen in the atmosphere. The ethane, yeah, that's your fuel. That would cause
Which
it. So.
the heat would just have to be a spark, and
But it's too cold.
darn it.
It's too cold. And you see the day after tomorrow where they're there trying to get their little fires going.
Pretty sure they got it
They
started,
did,
no?
So what would we do if rain was dangerous?
What do you mean? What would we
Would
do?
everyone move to the desert?
I guess one could do that where there's even less water.
Right. Well, there's no rain.
Again, I think we already
You
went
can't
over
know.
this. You go underground.
You could go underground. You could if you have time enough to build structures.
I was
you
going
could
to
think
say
of,
a silo.
yeah, you could build a
like-
silo out of other materials
Which
that are
is
acid resistant,
underground.
ceramics, glass,
Like I'm thinking of the show.
Teflon.
Out of the show silo.
What do you have, Chris?
No, I was just thinking that the Mammoth Cave in Kentucky would be a great destination. I don't know if you guys have ever been there, but it's just this amazing open cave system that just goes on for miles and miles.
Wow.
And it's so big that I don't, and I might be wrong on this, but I don't think that they've found all of the cave system. Like they've been able to map it out over the years, but they still don't think that they've been able to map out the whole thing. So maybe that's humanity's hope.
Well, I'll have to keep that in mind.
To become mole people. I love it.
So what
And
kind
there are
of
also under Detroit, there are these old salt mines, if I'm remembering correctly, that are just these open spaces that haven't been used. So
And in Indiana
that's
also
another
has
potential.
Indiana has a extensive cave system also down by the Kentucky border. I think all that's. I know people
they'll all
go.
be attached.
Yeah, potentially, yeah. But I know there are caves down there, and cavers. There's a word for that. It's like kaplunkers or
Plunking?
spelunking.
that's a fun word.
It is.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think you would do things like that. And that depends on the intensity of where we at in terms of the dangerous rain.
It's such a catch-22
Right.
because obviously you need water to survive,
That would
but
be, I
then
think,
you're
yeah.
trying to get away from, yeah.
And you could deacidify the water. There are chemical means, right? So if you had a base, you can add that. That would neutralize it. Things like that. Baking soda or something like that. Yep. So it's potentially doable. I think when you get to melting pH 1 sulfuric acid rain, you're probably screwed. I'm just gonna unless if you get out of a geographical region and get somewhere else, and then that rain will never. There was an industrial accident, and now that's going to be contaminated. Black rain, radioactive kind of rain, like from Chernobyl. After that, so you had the radioactive kind of debris mix into the clouds and then rain back down. So if you could get out the way of that initial, then yeah, like we were talking earlier, it's very local and personal.
So, Chris, what
But then
kind
you
of
have to worry about runoff and all those things, right?
Right.
You can get away from it, but then water's going to always run downhill and fill the rivers and streams. And
And we do have this.
maybe it's just
We lived in a sort of closed system. So rain, the water cycle, remember that from science class?
Oh, yeah.
Evaporation, condensation, precipitation, collection and runoff. So it's a big cycle.
Wow, I wish we had video for this.
Do you wish Jeff Goldblum had just
Yeah.
done that?
So, Chris, what kind of rain is the type in your book? If you don't mind me
That's a
asking.
good question because it's a question that drives the first half of the novel. Because at first it seems odd, but it doesn't seem dangerous. But the people who are caught out in it end up changing in very fundamental ways and end up becoming something that is a little bit less than human, a little bit more than human. It's the beginning of the novel is really an exercise in trying to understand what this rain is, where it comes from. The clouds that are driving the storm are very, very uniform in shape, very deliberate feeling. So there's some question as to whether this is something that this is a natural phenomenon, or is it something that is being done and manufactured?
Is it the government doing it to you? Controls the weather, right, guys?
Theories.
With the weather, the hurricane machine.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's again, that's all part of the question in that first part of the novel. And if I sound kind of cagey about it, and I don't
No,
I know.
that makes
That
sense.
much away.
Yeah.
But
That's why I
yeah,
was like,
that's
I didn't
something
know if that was going to be a good question to hear or not.
Oh no, it's a great question. By the time the novel is over, you have a pretty good inkling of what's going on, or at least
Okay.
I think that you have a pretty good inkling of what's going on. But it's also it's the story is a very small story. It's all centered around this farmhouse with this one family that is trying to. They start off the book with all kinds of problems. You got a teenager who's pulling away from the family. You've got some marital problems between the main character Scott and his wife. There's a small kid that they're dealing with. It's a very intimate kind of story against this like really large backdrop. And those larger questions, some of them get answered and some of them don't. But yeah, by the time you ended up at the end of the book, you've got a pretty good idea, I think, of what the rain is and what the consequences are to this family and to the world.
So, do they have communication during this? Is there a radio system still up, or like television, or has the rain disrupted that?
Yeah, at the beginning of the book, there's a lot of communication in terms of social media and trying to get answers through the normal means that we have, watching the Weather Channel.
Why is my rain
Part of the
weird?
story. But
Right.
no, you're looking at it very logically. And I think that you're taking a lot of the steps mentally that the characters are taking in the book, where they're trying to understand what's happening, what are their resources, what are their windows to the world. Yeah, it's. I
You've
think
already
it's
caught my
right on the
attention for this. I'm gonna read this one.
line. Awesome.
That's why I'm like, wait, I need to know more before I dive in, and I'm hooked.
You're in.
There it is.
Awesome.
But
But yeah,
Yeah, I'm just thinking about storms and how scary they are.
it can be psychologically too. That they have, I think Chris touched on this a little earlier, that there is this kind of idea with storms that they can be very powerful, very damaging, just without acid rain or
Right.
frogs or anything else that's beating down. Or they can be devastating. And historically, I think in human history and lore, there's some psychological connection to whether it's destructive powers. You give me looks over here.
I'm just saying, you live in Indiana, and anytime there's a tornado siren, you see half the block outside just looking out, going,
Well,
"Oh,
I didn't-
yeah, that's real green out
I
there."
didn't say us humans were smart, but
It's a very Midwest
Yeah,
phenomenon.
really.
it's one
Like,
of
you want to know where the tornado is so that you can see it over there,
that's right.
and then
Yeah.
know that you don't have to worry about it.
It's,
Where was that? I was actually in Cape Cod at the MBL, the Marine Biological Laboratory, and there was a rare tornado that came
Oh,
through
yeah,
Cape Cod.
I remember that.
So you have people from all over the world at this research center, and a lot of them had not experienced a tornado or what that was about. This tornado is close. Like, we were getting reports like, oh, it's not far. And they're like, let's go outside and see it. I'm like, no, we should get to the basement.
So,
And it's like you said, people are fascinated by it. I think it's, oh, here's this thing, and I want to see it, and can I see it, versus should I be headed to
but
shelter?
I also want to mention there were several shark sightings right during that same time.
Then we could have got Sharknado. There it
He
is.
could have.
but we have movies like Twister and
Yeah.
The Storm Chasers. Why is it such a fascinating thing for us to be like, yes, I want to see how far this destruction can go?
I think storm chasers also are generally
Scientists.
scientists that are exploring
But I
or
do
risk
think it's
takers,
that.
right?
I do think it's the
know,
adrenaline.
yeah.
Or just dumb
You
enough to
know,
go?
We're just
I think it's that
My category.
not
yes,
knowing
yes.
exactly.
I can make it home. I'm going to make it home. Yes, I've driven through some storms, and I'm going to get there. But yeah, or you could have meat chunks, raining meat chunks.
Cloudy with a chance of meatballs?
Is that
Cali or chance of meatballs.
is
that's
that
right.
in the real or the
It's a
fictional?
real Kentucky, 1876. I found a
Oh.
real case where mysterious chunks of meat fell from the sky, and so
Yeah, I remember
What?
reading
Yeah.
a theory about that. Actually, I don't know if that's where you were going. I don't want to like interrupt you.
oh, go for it. Yeah, I do have. I have a theory that I found that I probably think is believable.
The theory that I
But-
remember reading about that was that it was vultures
That's right.
flying overhead,
Yep.
and I guess in flight they can disgorge
Yep.
whatever
My
it was
Lord.
So
that
it's just,
they've
yeah.
eaten
Yep.
if it doesn't agree with them
That's
or
what
if
I
they
got,
have
yeah.
to fly faster.
It was a vulture vomit. So
Oh my gosh!
there.
Can you imagine
Any
if that
day.
happened to you?
Could
You
be,
would
right?
you really would think it's the end of the world.
So yeah, that was a little weird one that I found with the rain
Yeah,
stuff. That was real. That actually happened.
and people were like, "Oh yeah, look, it's raining," and then they start freaking out because it's raining blood, right?
Yeah,
Chunks.
there has been red rain,
Rusty.
rust color, blood color. Yep.
And
it
what was
It was a bacterial. I want to say that was in India. I don't have the date offhand in my head, but yeah, put that in the show notes for y'all. But yeah, no, there's been some of these are real. I think it's not all hand waving
Right.
that you can go and it'll be a fun game.
So, do the same effects happen when the rain is now snow?
What do you mean? Which effects?
If you acidify, like what would acid snow?
Yes. Like, is it safe to be like, all right, since there's acid rain, there can also be
Yeah, yeah.
acid snow?
Yeah.
Or in Chris's book, whatever that plague is in the rain, can it be a plaguey snow?
I think you just gave me the idea for the sequel.
Yes.
Right, there it is.
Because I'm assuming it's still in
Yeah.
there, and then it spreads
Yeah.
even faster because it's all clunked up, and then animals go "Hala, hala, hala,"
How do
So
they
it can
like little gremlins.
you can freeze sulfuric acid. So that would be possible to have frozen sulfuric acid, which then as it melts, it would then become
But not only the yellow
Acidic.
snow you shouldn't eat, but you shouldn't eat regular
You
snow.
shouldn't eat the regular snow either. That's
Okay.
right. Yeah. Yeah. And then like pathogens and things like that, like I said, usually that's not the main mechanism of how viruses or bacteria are transmitted over long distances, just because you got to have numbers, concentration. It's just probably wouldn't work as an efficient dispersal method, but that would be something that you could have there.
Yeah, I don't know why that thought was just felt like I didn't know if it was going to be possible. Like with all the stuff that
If it got that cold, maybe it would just,
be cool.
counteract the.
Right. And then you could, with the disease thing, you could think of weaponizing rain.
You shouldn't really
could.
be saying that on the podcast. You're going to give the government ideas.
You could. And I guess there were attempts. The one, I think it was in the Vietnam War, Operation Popeye. They used cloud seeding to extend the monsoon season for a tactical advantage. So there are
Really?
these kind of things. But yeah, it'd be interesting. Or geoengineering rain to do different things. So
And then
kind of,
isn't there radioactive rain?
right? We were talking black rain. We were talking about
Is
that. Like
black
Chernobyl.
rain the same as radioactive?
That's
okay.
generally what they
So,
call it.
like many years after the incident, is there still radioactive material in the rain there?
So you mean from groundwater, kind of the water cycle? I would imagine, yes, you could have some, but radioactive units have a half-life and they begin to decay, and then it's a concentration game. Like, what is that concentration? So you can imagine that when Chernobyl melted down, you had a great release of material into the atmosphere, which then rained down. If you have the radioactivity now in the groundwater and things like that, the vegetation,
Just at a
the
very
animals, they
low
would begin
level.
to absorb that and bind it, have chelators. So they would start to remediate, and maybe the groundwater may even filter as it goes through the layers to actually get to the groundwater source. So by the time you get there and recycle back, the
So
rain
it's
may
like-
not be
Like
as
they
harmful.
say, there's a lot of animals have a lot of mutations in
That's
that
just,
area.
Right, no, that's just because they're being
because
irradiated. Yeah.
like they didn't necessarily, the radioactivity wasn't enough to,
Kill them.
but it changed their whole.
And then also some animals reproduce fast enough that you could start seeing genetic mutations. So as you cycle through, you would have some progeny, right? If we think of evolution in some way, you have genetic changes, and then they lead to a phenotypic response. And your environment is the pusher of how you respond. You could have a genetic mutation that there's no environmental pressure. So you're never challenged. And so you don't know. So you have no kind of reproductive advantage over the population. But let's say you have an event, a radioactive event, or
Sure.
rain, or whatever,
sure.
a rain event. And all of a sudden you have some protective ability. Your skin can withstand slightly higher acid or radioactivity. Now you have a reproductive advantage that wasn't clear before, and now you would reproduce and your genes would pass through the progeny. So you would have this kind of cycle where you could have in a population that now you start selecting for a particular genotype that would express a certain phenotype. So that's how you could think about it in some ways. But
What's even more interesting is you get down to the level of like single-celled organisms,
That's right.
bacteria, that sort of thing, when their generations are marked out in hours as opposed to months or years.
yeah, that's right. That's why think about it, antibiotic resistance. So our antibodies that we have to bacteria that we overused in the 70s, 80s, 90s, probably early 2000s. So,
2000s,
and so for not even for human consumption, but for our animal consumption, the concentrated animal farms and things like that, to keep those animals healthy, you were pumping antibiotics in, but the bacteria they were killing, they start to develop mutations, and those mutations can protect them. We have MRSA, multi-resistant antibiotic, and things like that. You're now starting to see that the antibiotics, people go in and it's, we started with penicillin, ampicillin. You start working through and until you find something that works on a particular strain that you have, because they're starting to lose their efficacy. But yeah, genetics is a cruel mistress.
So this entire line of conversation is making me very afraid to go outside, just so everybody knows.
If it makes you
I'm
feel
kind of
better,
an indoor cat as is, but this is the last nail on the coffin.
it's been raining for like the past 3 days over here. It's the
Yeah,
first
it's the
time
same.
we've seen rain in forever. I forgot what it was.
And then it turned into snow.
It did turn into snow today.
Didn't you have it? I looked it up. Yeah, it was 2001 in India, the red rains. It was blood-colored rain. They thought it was linked to an algae spores that were being dispersed through the rain. The other incidents of black rain was our other nuclear fallout events. From
Bikini Atoll?
here. They might have had, I was thinking Hiroshima and Nagasaki, they would have had, but you're right, the Bikini Atoll, which was in our Godzilla episode.
I don't know why I was
the
like,
Lucky Dragon.
yes,
Hold
this
us-
is the one. I am on it before Joe says
You
it.
did, you got it. So so that was, and then Pliny the Elder in first century had described
The beer?
reddish rain. It was an actual person.
Oh,
Yes, it is a delicious beer.
Maybe that could be a
reported-
new. Maybe it could be a new coffee drink. That'd be
no, it's
real.
already a beer.
It is a beer, yep.
Oh, sorry, you can't have
Pliny the
that.
Elder, no. And they just used to describe these reddish rains as omens to war, and linked it to like warfare kind of events and things like that.
Speaking of drinking, but okay, back in like biblical times when the water, they couldn't drink the water, so they drank wine, right?
You could drink the water, yes. So water
Was
water
it?
quality was poor.
There was too much poop in it.
Yeah, that's right. It wasn't the runoff.
I'd much
What?
rather have a glass of red wine, please.
It's been
Yeah,
aged.
yeah.
It's been
There's a lot of things that in cholera you have like outbreaks, so water can be very dangerous. So if there was an apocalyptic event and we were all surviving, and you don't have your handy country wisdom nearby, securing a water source and a clean water source
And then
is
would
truly
that be
important.
like heating the water is probably the best?
So boiling the water would kill pathogens. That's what you do there. But if you have heavy metals, if you have radioactivity, you might have to use other things in the water, iodine to metal chelators. So you have to then think
So
about.
is that a good thing to have on hand? Like the iodine thing?
Yes. I think so. I don't know. I have iodine. Doesn't everyone?
I don't have that.
You do? We do? You keep it at a secret location.
No, I don't. I don't. What is it on there? It's like Easter egg hunt. Easter.
Am I going to just find it in my medicine cabinet or?
I would say, yeah, you could. No,
They
you probably don't
tablets.
have it.
Aren't they little
They
tablets
can
that
be
you put
tablets
in?
or liquid. Yeah, no, you can have it. Yeah, you can use it for other stuff. Iodine can be used to actually to
I think
clean
you
things
need to
or
have some on hand.
sterilize.
I feel like
things
I have
that,
some at
but
the
yeah.
shop.
Yeah, especially if this radioactive fallout, that's what they would give you. If you go in and you have radiation sickness, radiation poisoning, usually they give you iodine to help chelate and bind. It actually for your thyroid, because that's where you accumulate all these heavy metals. So it would go there and help. So prolong the pain. But okay, there you go. So
A nice medical lesson I didn't know we needed.
Sponsored by Iodine.
I didn't know where we were going there. I didn't even have to get the country wisdom out.
The weird kind of heavy metal.
I know. And methylene blue.
What?
That's right. Remember? It was in the noir. The mini.
Episode, yeah.
The mini.
Are you paying
noir.
attention? Are you taking notes?
No, we all
life-saving.
know how I am.
So the one thing I like to do is to investigate the oldest sources or some of the oldest sources. And so with the rain, I think some of the oldest are like biblical, Sodom and Gomorrah and fire and brimstone, but more early literature, classic sci-fi or pre-sci-fi, I guess, there. And so the oldest story I found, did you have it, Nick? No, you don't. You stopped searching.
Yeah, you kept finding it before I did.
And it was,
Earlier than mine.
and so Nick stole the thunder a little earlier, but it was the purple cloud in 1901
No
by
way.
M.P. Shield.
Do you think
Yeah,
that Prince
was-
knew about the purple cloud?
No, he only knows about the purple
You heard it here
rain.
first. Prince read the purple cloud and then wrote Purple Rain.
I can't wait to get him on the show.
Yeah, it was about a mysterious toxic cloud that nearly kills all life with some sort of deadly precipitation. 1905 was Red Rain by L.T. Mead and Robert Estes. It was one of the first fictional mentions of red-colored blood.
Red colored blood.
Oh, sorry. Red-colored rain? Yes. One I found interesting was the futility or the wreck of the Titan in 1898. So that's even a little before the purple cloud, but by Morgan Robertson. And it actually features radioactive rain, which was really unique and rare for the time because this predates, you can think predates nuclear kind of fears that you would have. But more interestingly is that radioactive elements weren't really discovered until 1896, so a couple of years before the story, uranium by Henry Burkwell.
Wow.
And then more famously in 1898, Marie Curie and Pierre Curie discovered plutonium and radium. So the same year, so this kind of story came out
Well, it was cutting
right around that
edge.
time. So
Yeah.
So
Really,
did they
yeah.
have some like insider information for this?
Yeah.
probably just went to some talk and I don't know.
They were friends
I didn't see
with-
any connection there, but you probably have
Chris,
a lot
what kind of connections do you have? Like, how much is your book predicting the future?
I hope 0%.
Yeah, 100% hand wavy up there.
Yeah, if this book becomes a reality, we're all in trouble. Yeah, even in terms of researching, I'll admit I really hate to do research for books up front. I'll do it while I'm writing. If I find myself in a corner and I'm like, okay, I need to figure my way out of this, I'll do it. I love learning things, but whenever that learning process gets attached to a project, it suddenly becomes this like onerous task that I don't want to do. So for the most part, I was winging it through the book, which is okay because the perspective of the characters doesn't really involve a lot of science or scientific knowledge. So
Right.
they're experiencing it in this very layperson kind of way. That I think of it in terms of like the 1950s sci-fi movies where there's always like that one scientist who is good at all things science and can explain anything, even no matter how far-fetched it might be. There's no guy like that in the story. There's no one to explain to them what's going on. So they're at the mercy of their own ignorance for a lot of the book.
I feel that. 'Cause as you said, your characters are taking place in a farm house, right?
Yeah,
Farmhouse.
it's a farmhouse, yeah.
Yeah, so that would make sense that not everyone there is going to be like, I know what's going on.
It's not like
Yeah.
Joe's hanging over
Right, yeah,
there.
man, my country wisdom and my iodine shows up.
At least I know I don't have to know these things because I'll just have to come find Joe.
Yeah. The problem is, I fear that, like in most sci-fi movies, like the smart people die early, or you go to the end. So I don't know where I'm at on the spectrum. So
And
you guys
usually,
might be it. So.
and usually the people of color.
And that's true. I got a couple strikes against me, Nick.
Why?
You might be it. I did a fun one, a little tie-in. We had a nanite episode early in the season. And one was that if you did some bioengineering of nanites, then they could get out into the rain and then rain into the sea, creating the gray goo kind of
Oh, yeah, I do
scenario.
remember
So,
this.
So I was like tethering, thinking about other episodes we did and bringing it back.
Man, that was earlier this year.
Yes, yeah, it was.
It wasn't that long ago, Nick.
Yeah, that was
Yeah, it was.
February.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Georgia, when are we?
Boy.
So, Chris, do you have a favorite rain? Dangerous rain? We've talked about a bunch.
Oh, God, that's such a tough question because the rain is actually falling outside as we're recording this. So
It is, yes.
kind of
Yes.
getting this like weird sort of eerie feeling already. But no, to me, the real heavy like monsoon type rains, those are terrifying. to
Yeah,
me,
yeah.
because you see them filling up rivers and the rivers
Right.
overflow their
Going,
banks and start eroding away the landscape at this like incredible rates and undermining structures and all of that. That you don't need science fiction to be terrified of that
No.
kind of experience,
Yeah.
and it happens all over the world.
I grew up in Arizona, so we would have the monsoon
Yep.
season. And I do remember those storms. And we'd have these big dust storms, too.
Big dust storm, yeah. Everyone's had ball tires and can't drive in the rain. So everyone's hydroplaning
Oh,
everywhere. Yeah, so it was
It's
almost
real
like
scary.
even more dangerous.
It's real scary to drive in the rain there. Yeah.
Why are their tires bald?
Because the weather's like nice all year, so you don't really think about tire health. So a lot of the cars, you just drive
You're not
into
worried
the,
about
I didn't know this was a thing over there.
That is a thing, yeah. A lot of hydroplaning, like when it rains, like just even a little bit of rain, you just see cars skidding. You got to slow down in the rain. Like you can't drive like a maniac like you usually do. It's
When
really,
I was
yeah.
like in my 20s, I got this car just totally spun around and hit me, and the airbags went off and everything. It was major. And now it's like I just hate driving in the rain to this day. Yeah.
Tina Turner had a nice rain song. And I can't stand rain against my window.
So what's your favorite rain, Joe?
My favorite rain. So
Rain in a movie.
rain in a movie, Blade Runner.
That's a good one.
Which was acid rain too. It was like hinted at in there that it was very dystopic, but it set the scene in that story so well.
That
And
movie,
you have it there.
the
so,
rain was part of that movie. Yeah.
It was always
Very
there.
good.
You always see that in movies too. Seven, like psychological thrillers, you always have this kind of misty rain, just always everyone's dripping wet.
And then it's
doing
also the
something.
gray. It's,
Dripping.
it's also the gray. You know, the gray,
Yeah.
the gray, eerie kind of
Is there
feeling.
any kind of rain in some Twilight, Georgia?
Oh, shush. I didn't do my Twilight
Damn
Zone
it,
reading.
Georgia.
The Twilight Zone.
I'll
You're
have,
supposed to come.
I'll have to figure that out
supposed to
before the
come.
mini episode.
A fun rain is the Neptune and Uranus. The rains that they have. What are you laughing about?
Why is that a fun rain?
Because it rains diamonds.
Oh.
Diamonds, yeah.
Sounds hurtful.
It probably does hurt.
You probably don't want to be caught there. But yeah, the pressure on those planets is almost 1 million times greater than Earth's atmosphere. And so the methane molecules are broken apart, allowing the carbon atoms to form diamonds, which then
interesting.
fall out the sky. So there you go. Rain's money. Make it rain, literally.
Oh, the most painful. Honestly,
about you, Nick?
I think it would probably be some daredevil fight scenes in the rain.
Ooh.
Because for some reason, he can see in the rain.
That's because he doesn't use his eyes. We gotta do an episode on echolocation. That'd be fun.
It's just going to be me shouting. Ah, Joe, where are you? Ah!
I
Just
know.
making random clicks. And
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we're all blindfolded in this episode.
That would fall into The Last of Us, so
It would be like, Marco.
The last. Oh yes, yeah. They had the little
Clickers.
clickers. Yeah. But they weren't. I don't know if they were
they were blind.
sourcing. Yeah, they were. I guess they were clicking. Or what was the other movie where they couldn't make noise?
Quiet Place.
Quiet Place. Those creatures had
They
some sort
make
of
that kind of noise, too.
that they were communicating with.
Yeah.
Okay, this has nothing to do with rain. Yeah, let's get back on track. Like, at least talk about like Invasion of Body Snatchers. We got stuff rained down on people. Or
Yeah. I remember when David Lynch was talking about, I think it was in Lost Highway, the one scene had rain. And then, you know how they shoot things out of order? And then they're like, oh no, it can't rain at that possible time. So they had a guy be there at, I don't remember the exact scene, but he had a hose and and that explained the water.
So, Chris, what's your next book about again?
Next book is coming out on April 30th. It's called I Contain Multitudes. It's a little less of a horror novel and a little more of a sci-fi novel about this woman who is trapped in this cycle of changing worlds. So every time she goes to sleep, the world around her changes so that she's in a different reality every day. And she's trying to find a way to not only understand what's happening to her, but also find a way to stop it. Because as the story progresses, these realities become more and more extreme there. They go from being just sort of small changes to what she believes is the real world to these large sort of sweeping differences. So as that escalates, she has to figure out what's happening before reality just collapses on her for good.
interesting. Yeah.
Wow.
Is she the same person throughout the entire thing?
Yeah. So she doesn't change at all, but everyone around her does, and nobody remembers her from one reality to the next
Wow,
until she meets the one person who does, and that sort of sets off the events of the story.
wow.
Cool.
That sounds
Yeah.
really good.
Just had to make sure it wasn't like a quantum leap
Although-
thing.
It also makes me
boy.
really,
Oh boy.
it also makes me really tired. Oh, can you imagine? You just don't like even want to go to sleep.
I feel like you just wouldn't get a good night's sleep just
know.
knowing that the dread of,
You're gonna wake
I don't
up
want to
and
deal with new people.
yeah.
In a way, it'd be freeing too, right? Because no matter what you
Right.
did that day, nobody's gonna remember. It's fine.
Almost like a
That's true.
groundhog kind of.
See, that's
situation.
gonna be
Right,
the one
like
time
ground-
that it doesn't change.
Yeah, that's it. Right. That's
They all
yeah,
remember the
yeah.
dumb thing that you did, but
Man,
nothing else.
that guy was an asshole. He came out of nowhere. Oh, he's back again.
Yes.
Oh boy.
Cool.
Where can you get your book?
It's going to be available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. You can request it at your local bookstore, which is always the best choice. And you can also find links on my website, christopher-hawkins.com.
And we will have that
Yep.
in our notes.
Any kind
I'll
of
put that
social
in the show
medias you
notes.
want to plug?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram and Threads. My handle is Hawkins Writes. And I'm also on Blue Sky. You can find me there.
Nice.
Nice. Yep.
I don't
We're-
think we're on there.
Are
we?
Yeah. We're on
We are?
Instagram. I'm on Blue Sky and
Oh.
Threads.
Yeah, I
Instagram.
think we need a rabbit hole of research.
I didn't know.
We do. Yeah. We're on Discord. We're all over the place. Come find us. Substack.
I gotta find.
We
you
don't
gotta
even know
find
where we
out,
are.
right?
Oh, what is going on here? Who posts everything? But yeah. Well, cool. Yeah. I was say.
Anything you gotta close out with, Joe? Any kind of business stuff? I don't know why. I just assumed you had something
I
lined
don't
up.
think I have any business stuff. No. I have nothing. I was gonna start closing this out, but then you're like, look at something. No, I think we touched on a lot of good stuff, and want to thank Chris again for joining us and talking about his book Downpour and his new book coming
Thank you
out.
for having me.
Talking about rain and its potential, the hand wavium and the real,
And just the straight up fear of rain.
and meat chunks.
We didn't get to the rainbow connection, but that's okay.
You just did.
Right. What? Do you have something you want to say? Rainbow connection?
No, you know what rainbow
I know what
connection
she
is.
made the
rainbow
connection.
is, yes.
Yeah.
You made the connection. The
'Cause
electric connection.
No, because that's one of my favorite songs.
Are you gonna sing?
No.
Because we're gonna end on Purple Rain.
Go
Ready?
for it.
3, 2, 1, go, Joe. All right.
You have me, Joe.
You got Nick.
We got Nick,
Hi, bye.
Georgia. We have Chris. Thank you again. And
We went down pool hole.
Some watery holes.
Some soggy.
Oh, stay safe out there. Love y'all.